Finding Why, a short story. When I was a young boy, my father, a historian, would tell me wonderful stories of life throughout the different eras of human history. From the Neolithic Revolution to the Middle Ages to the World Wars, each story was an adventure of its own, and little me thought they were all amazing. Following my father's unfortunate demise, I assumed his place as a historian as well. Our local museum was a smaller one, but the archives had mountains of texts to discover. One day, as I read about ancient Greece, I learned of the interesting philosophical ideas of the time. Socrates and his method of questioning people into disagreeing with themselves always gave me a chuckle. However, as I read more into philosophy, I wondered if being a historian was not the job for me. Maybe I was destined to be a philosopher. However, I could not simply drop my career and move to philosophy full-time immediately, so I brought it up to one of my co-workers, Mark, in the break room one day. "You know, I don't see anything wrong with this idea," he said with a mouthful of bagel. "I don't know much about philosophy, so I don't even know exactly what it is that they do. But if you want to go for it, go for it." "That's my problem, Mark. I want to go for it, but I don't want to leave my father's legacy behind." I sighed and began to prepare myself a cup of coffee. "And you're right. What would I even do as a philosopher? All the good, big questions can simply be answered by Google nowadays." The machine chirped to announce that my drink was ready. I grabbed the handle of my mug and carefully took a sip. If Google can answer all your big questions, then why not ask it a ginormous question? Something deep that a simple algorithm can't answer. Like the meaning of life. I spit out my coffee. Maybe it was too hot. Maybe I thought Mark was insane. Maybe both. Or maybe he had just come up with the most amazing idea in the history of history. Once I was ready to go home, I didn't. I packed up my stuff and got in the car, but instead of heading to my house, I went to the park. My first plan of action was to ask some of the locals what they thought the meaning of life was. My results were about as I expected. The majority of people I asked either said money or love, with some variations of them like power, family, or friends. I also received a singular 42 as an answer from a teenager, which I assumed was some kind of inside joke or reference that I simply didn't get. I was a bit stuck as to what to do at first. After all, planning such a trip is no easy task. Finding the meaning is no easier. I wanted to hit as many major countries and cities as possible and eventually decide on the following route. I could never go into the full details of all of my journeys, so I will trim it down to the four most important stops: Rio de Janeiro, Brazil; Athens, Greece; Varanasi, India; and Kyoto, Japan. The main reason I added Rio as a destination was to attend the Grand Carnival they celebrate once a year. Unfortunately for me, it was August, and I had missed the festivities by about 5 months. But I wouldn't let my disappointment stop my quest. It took 2 layovers, stopping in Miami and Brasilia, but I managed to get to Rio from New York for under $400. I asked a local about what exactly the carnival was celebrating and got quite the history as an answer. It originally began as a spring festival honoring the Greek god Dionysus. The Romans modified it into a festival preceding Lent, which evolved into a massive celebration. Festivities began in Brazil in 1723 when the Portuguese immigrated, with things becoming grander and grander throughout the 1800s. When the Africans arrived during the slave trade, they brought their culture along with them, and the samba especially became a major part of Brazil's culture. While I was unable to get any more information on life's meaning from Rio and the carnival, I did see how art and celebration could be a powerful expression of life's purpose. This was good to know, but I still didn't have much information about the meaning of life itself. So I decided to head to the location that inspired this trip the most. I had always wanted to go to Greece, even before I discovered the philosophers of ancient times. In the 5th century BCE, the city-states of Athens and Sparta went to war against each other. Athens had the stronger navy, but Sparta had the stronger army. Sparta, with a little help from the plague, ended up winning over Athens. The powerful city had fallen. The citizens of Athens began to wonder how their great empire had fallen to dust, leaving them in shambles. And in these shambles, some great philosophers were created. Philosophy, literally, love of wisdom, delves into the mysteries of existence. This essential human field of study interrogates reality, reason, the mind, the universe, and even knowledge itself. Some of the famous philosophers of the time were Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, each one coincidentally being the student of the previous. Socrates was known for his acts of questioning, so much so that he was convicted of corrupting the youth and sentenced to death. While I was in Athens, I visited the academy and interviewed philosophy professors. They offered complex and nuanced perspectives on existential questions, but none offered a single definitive answer. I needed more information. Something I haven't dug into yet is religion. Various religions have different beliefs on the purpose of life. In Hinduism, life isn't a linear path from birth to death. Instead, it's a constant cycle of reincarnation. When you die, your soul, or Atman, is rebirthed in a new body after each life until you reach moksha, liberation from the cycle. This was about the extent of my knowledge before visiting Varanasi, the supposedly most religious city in India. I witnessed a cremation ceremony on the Ganges River, whose waters were believed to be sacred. Some Hindus believe the waters grant direct passage to moksha, which is why the ashes of the deceased are often placed there. Another key concept of Hinduism I learned was karma. The actions that you perform in one lifetime heavily influence your future lives. Just like the golden rule from primary school, if you are a good person, other people, or in this case the universe, will be good to you. These concepts were far from what I was familiar with at home, but I knew there was more work to be done. I was close to the meaning, and perhaps my next stop would bring me there. Because I had not done so in Varanasi, I intended to visit some temples and engage in some religious activities while in Kyoto. I was introduced to the complex topics of Zen Buddhism, such as the paradoxical koans, and learned about the concept of mu, meaning nothing. I didn't think anything of it at first. About 2/3 of the country is Buddhist, although it does not always affect their lives in major ways. There may be Buddhist funerals and altars to pay respects, but not much more than that. My stay in Japan was not a long one. I had already gathered information from other locations not discussed here as well. It was time to head home and synthesize everything I'd learned into an answer. My name is Arthur Edmund, and I have just returned home from a multi-month journey around the world in search of the meaning of life. My results are as follows. The meaning of life is a deep topic with no one specific answer. At first glance, it might seem like something simple, like reproducing, or finding happiness, or becoming rich. Turn to religion, and the goal of life might be to be a good person in hopes of escaping the infinite cycle of reincarnation. Perhaps it's about resilience and hope in the face of unimaginable hardship, or maybe it's about expressing joy through art and celebration. No matter what you might think it is, you're right. It's a subjective question, and the answer differs from person to person. But in my opinion, I think there is an answer, and that answer is